You wrote another one, and I tend to agree with you. There isn't going to be a winner in the messy divorce with Jim Schwartz.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like anyone's coming out here smelling good, right? Like from the Browns, one by one, from the Browns' perspective, I'm not sure if this is the case, but sometimes perception is reality, and it doesn't seem like they were prepared for this outcome. Like it seems like they thought the whole time that okay, yes, maybe Jim Schwartz doesn't won't appreciate being passed over for this job, but if we throw some money at him, maybe give him a title promotion. I thought this as well. I thought that cooler heads could prevail. Clearly not. Clearly, whether Jim Schwartz couldn't get over the fact that he wasn't that coach, whether he thought that maybe he had an inkling that he was going to be that coach and he felt like the Browns switched gears on that, or whether, I mean, that this is another possibility. What if this guy feels, well, if there is a moment of acceptance here, it's like, okay, I'm a defensive coordinator at this stage of my career. That's what it is. But if I'm going to be a defensive coordinator, am I going to be, I'm going to be a defensive coordinator at this stop where we don't win very many. Yes, sure, I have a great defense, but we don't win very many games, and I'm working for a guy that was just hired over me. No, I'm not. I'm not doing that. So the Browns misplayed their hand there. I think it's fair to say. From Jim Schwartz's perspective, um, you are leaving behind. Like his next defensive coordinator job will likely be a downgrade in talent. And if he does want to be a head coach again, I think that he just added a new pointed question to his interview in the future about, okay, so why couldn't you handle this? What exactly happened on your way out? It was described as a pretty messy exit. Uh, why should why should we expect you to not behave that way in the future? I just think, again, I don't think he's necessarily wrong to be upset for the if the Browns let him on, and this could be one of his last head coaching opportunities in the NFL. I understand the emotions that go into that. I just think that part of being a head coach is controlling those emotions, and I think again teams are going to have questions about that. And then for Todd Monken, none of this is Todd Monken's fault, but now Todd Monken, it feels like a little bit behind the eight ball, right? Like one of the main reasons he took this job, he was very clear. He didn't take this job because of Jim Schwartz, but he did take this job because of the defensive culture that Jim Schwartz created. It was pretty much you just have to fix the offense is the sell of this job. You're gonna have a dominant defense. You have a culture setter as a defensive coordinator, and you have leaders that are already bought into this guy. I'm not saying that whoever Browns replaced, Denzel Ward, Myles Garrett, Grant Delpit, um, won't like or they won't play for, whatever. Especially if they hire from within and they have a familiarity with that coach. It could smooth over, but you just lose a little bit of this institutional um, credibility that Todd Monken was gonna walk in with, and now you're the guy who they perceived maybe had a little bit of beef with the old coach they liked. And if the defense doesn't go well, it now it reflects poorly on your staff. Whereas before, you never thought that was going to have to be an issue. And really, we're going to have to take a ton of responsibility for it. Jim Schwartz is the defensive coordinator. Then we all understand what the deal is. That's his responsibility. And Todd Monken is, we're going to have a little bit more patience with him because we know that the offense requires patience. Now, people are going to be tapping their feet if the Browns defense is the 11th best instead of the fourth best. And that's unfortunate.
Yeah, here's the thing: with Schwartz gone, you've added a variable. So there, you may. I kind of expect, and I don't think it's going to be a huge step, but how could a different coordinator? How could you not expect there to be um, a step back? It's just going to be a different way of doing things.
Right. I think that there are. I like some of the guys that are on this list. I think that a guy when you think about what Jim Schwartz's defense is, he will tell you first and foremost that it was a strategy designed to accentuate players' talents. Like, there's not a ton of this ain't Mike McDonald, um, becoming the Kyle Shanahan of defense, right? It's simplifying the the thought process for players so that they can play as fast as they possibly can, and relying on the talent that they have. And don't get me wrong, like if it was that easy, the Browns would have done it before they hired Jim Schwartz, right? And Denzel Ward and Myles Garrett were here when Joe Woods was the defensive coordinator, and the Browns defense was stuck in the 20s in yards per play, right? So clearly, I'm not trying to discredit Schwartz whatsoever, and I'm with you. I think that even within the familiarity of the system, there's still going to be a down to down play for or feel for play calling that the next defensive coordinator is not going to have in the same way that Jim Schwartz does, because he doesn't know this personnel the same way. It's built. This defense was built in Jim Schwartz's image, designed specifically for Jim Schwartz's scheme, and he knows it better than any of these other guys who like some of these guys like Jason Tarver, Efrain Banda, potentially Jacques Césaire, if he ends up getting an interview, have worked for Jim Schwartz, know the scheme intimately. Corey Undlin, a candidate I like, the pass game coordinator from Houston, where they run a similar defense, and where Undlin also worked for Schwartz a little bit in the Eagles days. Like, that's all great if you can hire within the tree and hire someone with scheme familiarity. Ideally, if you like one of the in-house guys, hire someone who has personnel familiarity. Great, but there's no one-to-one copy of Jim Schwartz. In fact, only 3 of the candidates on this list so far even have experience calling an NFL defense, and even then we're talking about guys like Charlie Blunt from the Giants, who was an interim coordinator for 4 games last year. We're talking about Tarver, the linebackers coach, in-house linebackers coach, who last called an NFL defense with the Raiders in 2014. Now he's had college jobs along the way, but like there's a lot about NFL defense and offense, for that matter, that has changed. There's a lot about the speed of the game that has changed. There will be an adjustment period, and like I said, if that adjustment period shows up in yards per play or EPA, success rate, what have you, there's going to be question marks.